Hi, I'm Kurt from AusArmour and welcome to CUPOLA Conversations. Today I'm joined by our master mechanic, Steve, who's going to be answering some of your questions that you brought in this week. But before we do that, we thought we would get to know him a bit and talk about his history. Steve, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kurt.
So, where did it all start? Your sort of love of all things mechanical.
I guess I was pretty fortunate that I had a father who was always a Mr. Fix-It, right? You know, we didn't have tons of money when we were growing up, so I was always involved with helping to fix the lawnmower and things like that, which then when you go into your student days, when you've got even less money and filling the fuel tank up on your car is like over-capitalising the heap of junk that you own. It means that you're sort of forced to have to learn how to do some maintenance to keep the thing running.
What did you fix anything with your dad, like a car?
I had a series of rusty old Datsuns. So one of them was a Datsun 1600, for those in North America, a P510. So it's a bit of an iconic sort of a car that was used for rallying and things like that. And by the time I got it, it was completely flogged out. So it's a bit of a losing battle to keep that running. But then I gravitated onto another type of Datsun, which was a little bit better, a little bit less rust, that lasted longer, and that sort of got me going on cars. I've never really been what I would say obsessive about cars, but I enjoy a few different brands and stuff. As I started to try and grow up a little bit, I purchased a slightly more sensible Holden Commodore, which I had for a few years while I was in Australia.
So that was your first car?
First proper car.
What V was it?
It was a VN.
A VN. I had a
Yes.
VR.
Did you?
VR Commodore was
okay,
my
so
first
it's
one.
closely related.
One of the questions here is Ford or Holden?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, be prepared
answer
to alienate half the viewers of the channel.
My heart says Ford because a good friend of mine had an old Ford Falcon, V8 Falcon. If you turn the lid of the air filter upside down, you could hear the engine sucking through the carburetor, and it sounded like a NASCAR.
Okay.
No joke. And so
that
always used to sound. It just seemed to sound better than what the Holdens did. But I owned a Holden, and I always used to enjoy going to Bathurst, that iconic car race, and watching that as well too. So.
Well, speaking of car race, that's around your first job, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. You know, instead of using the sort of education and going out into the workforce and doing a sensible job, I actually went off and joined a company that did Daihatsu, Honda and Subaru performance parts, as well as they ran a rally team which had us running around the country attending events and doing customer work. And when we weren't doing that, we were back in the workshop playing with stuff and doing development. And that's where I sort of learned how to, do a bit of basic fabrication, cutting and welding and drilling, and started to learn more about electrics, electronics, engine management, turbochargers.
How old were you when you got onto this team?
I was like in my really early 20s. Yeah, early 20s.
The other guys in their 20s?
Yeah, similar age. There were a few older guys.
Yeah.
As well too. So yeah, I was part of a team, and I was still very much learning because I really didn't know anything at all. Back in those days with rallying, it was all about following the car. So you were part of a service crew. It was tons of fun because you were running your own race. You had to get to where you were, find a spot, set up, the car would come in, you'd change tyres, fix any sort of stuff, then you'd have to pack everything up again, and you'd race off again to the next place. So it was really, you didn't have time to sort of think too much about it because you were always running from place to place, and it was loads of fun. And the rallying seems to attract a certain type of people that everyone talks to each other. In circuit racing, they can be a bit snooty at times. So in rallying, they're a bit more friendly, and you have beers with everyone in the bar afterwards. So that sort of thing. You compete on that stage, and you're competing against the clock, and so you're not actually directly competing against each other.
Right,
so
of course. It's just you and the track.
So quite often competitors would lend you tools, and you could borrow stuff, and you'd let other people have spare parts and things like that. So that was quite good, and it was a really good time because We also did some events which were part of World Championship rallying when you had all of the big guys like Carlos Sainz and Juha Kunkkanen and all those people with with the Group A rally cars and then the World Rally cars. So it was a really exciting time to be involved in it. So
To be a young engineer.
yes.
Wow.
Yes. Well, yeah, you know, young, cleaning out the van, changing tyres, doing all sorts of different stuff.
But
like that.
when you're keen and like all that stuff is just awesome.
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah, and it's
Sure
about
is.
proving yourself too.
Yeah, sure is. Pretty early on, I got the opportunity to travel to Sri Lanka, Thailand, Indonesia, Hong Kong, and Singapore. That's where the sort of travel bug really bit quite hard.
You grew up in a pretty small town, like
Yes.
so. Having that moment, having the world open up before you, that would have been
Yeah.
would have been exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah, it really was.
And you travelled with this team.
Yeah, you know, doing work. So I was, you know, helping sell and promote stuff as well too.
What sort of stuff?
Different parts, like performance parts for
Right.
cars. So you know, I'd go over with the suitcases loaded up with different goodies and bits and pieces to install on because this again was right at the beginning of the internet and .com bubble and
course,
all
the
that sort of
.com
stuff
bubble.
like that. So the owner of the business I was working for was really good at promoting the business. So very quickly we got requests to do work within the region, and there wasn't too many people doing it. So
Wow.
so
What a great
again,
opportunity.
it was a good timing.
Yeah. So after your performance rally car journey,
Yeah.
where did life take you then?
In between that, I wrote a book on tuning Subarus.
Yes,
as
the
well too.
Subaru Performance Handbook.
Yes.
You
yes.
co-authored that?
Yeah, I co-authored the first couple editions of it, and then the last edition was all my.
Annotations.
I'm responsible for that particular one of it. So that was really good fun to do that, to you know express your knowledge in words and stuff, and to see people you know buy it and enjoy it and comment on it.
Do you still get like little checks in the mail for that?
No, that's I mean nobody buys books anymore.
It'd be great if we could promote like a you know a direct sale thing for support Steve and his authorship.
Yeah, now there's so much stuff on the internet. Everyone's an expert. A lot of the content in there is pretty dated, and it was sort of what you knew as the best of your ability at the time.
Great experience though.
It was a really good experience. Yeah, it taught me a lot about, and I learned taught myself how to touch type.
Hey, always handy.
Yes.
That's not going out of fashion anytime soon.
No.
So after you wrote the book, I believe you did work in the Middle East.
Yes, I did. So a friend of mine actually referred to me an opportunity to move to Dubai, where there was a performance car workshop there that was looking for a workshop manager that was owned by a high-profile local guy who had a fantastic collection
sheikh?
of cars. No, he wasn't. Almost a sheikh, but not quite a sheikh. But he's a high-profile high-profile fella. I went over there for 2 weeks to look at the place, look at the operation, and look at the city of Dubai. So this was back in 2000, so it was right when the sort of growth spurt of Dubai was kicking off. All the construction boom was starting,
Like
and
the
things like that.
palm-shaped
All
resort,
of that
all that
that
stuff.
hadn't been started yet. So
Wow,
so it's
that's
pretty
a
early
while
on.
back.
Yeah. I figured, yeah, this looks pretty good. I'm ready for a bit of a change, and packed my stuff up early in 2000, moved to Dubai there for what started as a 3-year contract. And for anybody that's ever lived overseas, you sort of normally hit a bit of a hump around a year and a half, 2 years, and if you get over that 2 years, you're going to be in for a long haul. And it was a long haul. It was almost 15 years living in Dubai, but 15 in total, yeah.
Wow.
15 in total. Real top flight supercars. And
What like can you say what kind?
yeah, let me see. A Ferrari F40, F50, and a F60 Enzo, Porsche 959, a Mercedes-Benz CLK GTR, a Porsche GT1.
Wow. This guy's the real deal.
And a bunch of stuff. These are like, real Jaguar XJ220.
Yeah.
real supercars, and that was one of the jobs was to keep these things running. You think tanks take a lot of maintenance, well these things take even more maintenance as well too. Plus also...
Did he drive them all?
Yeah, he enjoyed, and we actually modified a lot of them, so we were bolting bigger turbos and other stuff to some of these vehicles.
Holy. Just so he could fang it around
Just
the
so it
streets
could
of
be
Dubai.
faster, because he was a rally driver himself, and he
Okay.
loved performance stuff. He was his passion, and he also loved doing jobs for friends and contacts and things like that. So we were always bolting on big turbos onto Land Cruisers and Nissan Patrols and doing other things like that. And also got to travel within the region as well to other countries doing jobs while I was working at this.
The performance garage, we'll call it that.
At the performance garage.
Your travels landed you in Iraq.
Yes, it did.
What year was that?
That was in 2004. So,
wow.
So the plan was to join a company that was doing armoured cars and up-armouring of four-wheel drives and things for personal security detachments, which was all the rage in Iraq at the time. So if you wanted to go to Iraq and travel around, you needed an armoured Land Cruiser or something like that.
Is that Blackwater?
No, well, no, Blackwater is actually a security contractor. So we would nominally try to sell vehicles and products to them to use.
Right.
And part of it was going to include a rotation to go into Baghdad, because they had a service operation inside the green zone of Baghdad to service these vehicles, and it's also a bit of a sales base as well too. And travelling in and out of the place is not that easy, and I ended up getting stuck there for sort of close to 6 months, I think it was.
Wow. How was that? Scary?
Yeah, it was pretty intense. It was right at the time of the Fallujah was taking place, so there was tons of activity, and you know, they were shooting rockets into the green zone. They were lobbing mortars. There was a lot of car bombs and things going off, and it was
dreadful.
And it was tricky to move around. Like moving outside of the green zone was very difficult because of the number of roadside bombs and other things like that. So it was pretty intense, you know, like a few times where the heart felt like a canary in a cage flapping around, you know.
Any particular instance come to mind?
There were a few times where close to the compound where I was living in, it was rocketed as well too, and then actually seeing the damage that takes place afterwards. And there was I befriended the people from the Australian Embassy who at that time were living outside of the embassy, so I went there for a few times for dinner and got to know the Aussie security detachment that were helping guard the embassy, because the embassy was outside of the green zone. And on one of the routes that we went to, there had actually been like a roadside bomb attack on one of the convoys, and when you see that, the aftermath of it, the way it strips all the leaves off the trees and the scorch marks and the smashed up cars and things like that, it's
dreadful.
Yes, man. It's not. So it I guess you could call it character building. Yeah, but I was happy to leave, and I left that industry aside. I thought I gave it a go and left that aside.
It would have been high octane.
It was, yeah. Things seem a bit dull afterwards, but then dull is also good. You get to enjoy it, because you're always at a very high state of. I mean, it's nothing compared to real wartime, but you're always at a really elevated state of I guess, I don't know, agitation or whatever.
Yeah. Anywhere else in the Middle East before you moved home?
Oh, right. Well, yeah. So,
did you ever do the Dakar, the Paris to Dakar?
No, I didn't do the Paris-Dakar, but as part of my role when I first moved to Dubai, I was worked as chief scrutineer for the UAE Desert Challenge, which was a round of the World Desert Raid, Rally Raid.
Yeah.
It's sort of a same event in the part of the calendar that includes the Paris-Dakar. I almost did the Paris-Dakar once, but it didn't quite work out. But I got to experience what the whole Rally Raid scene is all about, and the personalities and the people and the crazy vehicles, including the Russian trucks You know, the
Yes.
big CAMAZ trucks that they built to tow the nuclear missiles and things like that were some of the
Belting through.
top competitors. And
Wow.
I never really looked at them closely because I'm convinced that there's stuff in them that's the same that's in these Russian tanks now.
Yeah, for sure. After your rallies, after the Middle East,
Yep.
where did you land then?
Well, I still stayed in the Middle East, but I took a 180 sort of career change. I actually traded in my spanners for a BlackBerry and a suit and joined the corporate world working for an American company that did industrial printing equipment, and started in a fairly junior role
Like paper
in the
printing?
business. Printing onto consumable stuff like soft drink cans, beer cans,
Right. Yeah.
plastic bags,
Like branding and
product
info
identifier.
and that. Yeah.
Use by dates.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So
Yeah.
I can never look at a use by date now without thinking about
The machine.
what goes behind it. So I started at a fairly low level, and when I was employed, my first bit of advice was go and get a new passport and fill it up, and that's what I did.
Wow.
So I was fortunate to have sort of Middle East and Africa as part of my sales territory. So I'd spend 2, 3, sometimes 4, 3 weeks out of a month travelling on the road, visiting distributors who were selling our products, meeting customers, learning the business and stuff. And sort of over the next sort of 12 or so years, I slowly made my way up the ranks in terms of responsibility and stuff, which then gave me the opportunity to relocate from Dubai to Singapore, where I lived in Singapore for almost 5 years there, doing the same sort of thing. And then I found myself back in Australia, sort of semi-retired, I guess. I was thinking about travelling around Australia, because trying to reconnect with the place, because I've been out of Australia for 20 odd years.
Yeah, of
so I
course.
felt like a bit of an immigrant.
Yeah, you would have missed out on a lot.
A lot of things happen.
Yeah.
People have changed and things. So reintegrate myself with Australian society. And
How do you think you're going?
sort of doing all right. I had my good days and bad days.
Yeah, you seem pretty Australian to probably to everyone.
Yes.
But, yeah. And then you've wound up here.
Then I wound up here. So I've been following the YouTube channel for some time, because I used to enjoy tuning in to watching Workshop Wednesday and seeing all the fellas working in the workshop doing all the restorations, because deep down I'm intensely frustrated about how I struggle to do things like drill holes in the same place. And, I mean, I can build stuff, but I'm a bit of a hacker when it comes to working metal and doing things like that.
I wouldn't have thought that at all.
It's not real pretty, but I wish I could be better. So I'm in awe of the guys here, that they can, machine stuff, they can weld things, they can create things out of thin air, put stuff together.
Yeah, drawing and measuring, that's really important.
Yeah, so I suck at that, so at measuring things. And
Well,
never
look,
quite
you've fixed a
turns out.
lot of stuff here.
Yeah.
There's been some serious doozies we've thrown your way, but you're yet to have been properly stumped. I think one of the questions is, what is the hardest thing or the trickiest thing you've worked on? And from my perspective, it looks like the water truck.
Yeah, it is a water truck.
Is it actually?
It's probably the most frustrating, because it should have been the easiest to do. So
Yeah.
So trying to get that running, that old Mack truck.
The old Mack truck. Steve, when you're not fixing stuff, do you have
Yeah.
any hobbies?
I've got a few hobbies, like I enjoy drinking beer and sitting on the lounge. But,
Yes.
but in order to do that, I'm also one of these crazy people that likes to squeeze themselves into inappropriate size clothing and go off riding my bike.
A mammal.
Yes, I truly am that.
For those at home, it's a middle-aged man in lycra.
And that's me.
You also have to squeeze yourself into some pretty uncomfortable positions in the tanks. So.
Yeah, so it helps keep fit. And, while I was whenever I travelled overseas, I would always take my bike with me, and my colleagues would be laughing, because at the end of the day, they'd be heading into the bar for some drinks, and I'd be going out and taking my bike, riding around Shanghai or somewhere else like that.
Oh, wow.
Something silly like that.
No,
But
it's good. It's a great way to stay in shape.
sure is. Yep.
What has been your favourite vehicle to work on?
I'd have to say it's my first. The first real introduction to tanking is the Leopard 1, I think.
What's the worst engine, carburetor, fuel injection system that you've ever worked on?
Oh, that's easy. Some of the early German stuff with the mechanical fuel injection.
So what hangs on the wall of Steve's man cave?
I've got a few certificates up there. I've got loads of like participation medals from different cycling events I've done, a collection of a few photographs of people and cars and places and things like that. Pretty standard sort of
man
things.
cave
Yeah,
affair.
standard man cave. Not too heavy duty, but...
This was an interesting question. So your take on Theseus and his titular ship. So I think what that's referring to is something still an original when it's all been replaced?
Ah, I see. That's quite deep, isn't it?
Isn't it just?
Yes, I normally don't consider that sort of thing. I think because you're trying to maintain the concept and the shape,
The spirit.
and the spirit of it, as long as you're not selling it for something that it's not, and that people know what's in it, what is and isn't, I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Okay, top 5 tools for any tank project.
Hammer,
Hammer.
even bigger hammer,
Bigger hammer.
great selection of adjustable spanners, shifter spanners.
Yep.
How many is that?
3.
That's
You got 2 more.
a series of chisels and different size bits of metal for whacking on things.
Yep. Your flathead screwdrivers can come in handy for that sometimes.
Yeah, because they double as a lever.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
They not only undo things, screws, but they also
They-
allow you
101
to
uses.
lever things, chisel things off, stake stuff, and I
Last
guess
one.
a pet snake.
Okay.
You could train it to go in and...
That's the dream tool.
That's a dream tool,
Yeah,
right?
okay. Is there a vehicle here that is just irreparable that you've had a crack at?
There's a few vehicles like the Hargo and the Sentinel there, which are fairly well biodegraded, right? Which would be a real challenge to bring them back to life, but
Not impossible.
I don't think it's impossible. I mean, it's, getting a pile of twisted scrap, which is, in my book, is impossible, which is why I'm really in awe of what the guys do over in the restoration section. But the owner of the museum picks the vehicles that he purchases carefully so that they're all, they're either statics and they're a solid static,
Yeah.
or they are runners which are
Kind
can
of
be
good to go.
kept running, or
Yeah.
won't take much to get them going.
What are some of your favourite personal cars from the past?
I really like the Subaru WRX STI. I've owned 4 of them over the course of my time, and also really like the Mazda rotary engine. So I owned a Mazda RX-8, which if I was going to start playing around with another car as a special car, I'd probably get another one of them, because I reckon one of those with a turbo would be pretty good.
Okay. Which vehicle would you take through the Macca's drive-through?
It would probably have to be the Leopard or Gepard, because the driver's position is on the right-hand side.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
okay. You can grab your chips and nuggets easily.
They wouldn't be able to hand you your stuff.
Okay, will the Tiger 1 have an original transmission? I know we were toying with the idea of maybe putting a Leopard engine in it. What are your thoughts on maybe that? Do you reckon that'd be possible?
Look, I've said it before, anything's possible given enough time.
We'll
time
put you on
and
the
money.
moon.
Yes, exactly. Difficulty with Leopard is that it's a rear driver where the Tiger drives from the front. So that would be pretty cool to be able to use something like that, because it's a brilliant power pack and it's easy and it's pretty simple.
But rigging it up so you would need a long sort of drive shaft.
Well, not even that. You'd have to turn the engine around, and then you'd potentially have issues where the thing has 4 reverse gears and only two forward gears and stuff. I mean, it's not impossible. You could potentially use a Leopard engine just as a power source to drive, but then you need some other type of transmission, whether it be the original transmission differential unit. I think you've got final drives for it.
Yep.
I don't know. It's so far off in the...
It is, yeah. That's a few years away,
in the future that I'm haven't really invested too much thought on it because I'm thinking about AusArmour, which
AusArmour
is
Fest.
bearing down on us like a bunch of tanks.
Yeah, it's only a few weeks away.
Yes.
Has Steve ever worked on a 1969 Skylark Buick?
No.
Nah. Do you have a dream vehicle you want to make a runner?
Here in the museum?
Yeah.
Well, let me see. My heart tells me that the 2S1, the Pion, the self-propelled
Oh, the one
gun.
back here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this one.
Yeah.
This small thing that's
Yeah.
just sitting
Yeah.
around here, right? Here, I'm looking over there, looking for it. That would be just impressive because it's huge, it's Soviet, it'll chug out tons of smoke, it'll screech and clunk, and it'll be obviously quite a effort
spectacle.
to get it out. And I think we might even need to cut some trees down to be able to drive it around the track too because of the barrel. But it would be a real crowd pleaser. That would be a favourite.
Yeah.
My head, something like maybe the Hargo or the Sentinel would be pretty interesting to get going. And also another sort of heart one would be the Chieftain, just to hear it run because you know, I watch all the Mr. Hughes videos listening to the Rolls-Royce engine go, and it sounds great.
Oh, the smile of his is an icon. No matter what he's working on, he always has a smile. Isn't that nice? Finally, what workshop habit do you have that none of the others have? Do you have anything that's uniquely Steve in the workshop?
Oh, there's lots of that. There's lots of that.
What do you listen to in your headphones? There you go.
So I always have headphones in, and I guess I'm a little bit of a nerd, so I like listening to science and technology podcasts. Also interested in politics, finance, things like that. So I spend a lot of time listening to that sort of thing. Although at the moment there's so much of it happening that I find myself watching cat videos.
Yeah, it's a bit overwhelming.
To try and decompress a bit because you can only listen to so much.
Yeah, I feel that.
But that's what I like listening to, and it also has the benefit too that if you're hitting something or grinding or other people are using noisy stuff, it reduces the sound so that you know, tinnitus doesn't play up too much.
Steve, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for the opportunity.